Hello and welcome to this, the Books Crypto Club weekly catch-up on Zoom. It is Sunday, the 14th of August 2022, and as always happens with these sessions, we're going to talk about whatever the attendees want to talk about. So some weeks we might be talking about basic things about cryptocurrency, about how blockchains work or how wallets work. Other weeks we may have somebody who would like to talk about one of the projects that they're working on or any activity that they're watching. Sometimes we talk about what's going on in the marketplace, whether that be with DeFi or NFTs or general crypto activity. Anyway, everyone's always welcome to come along to these sessions. They're open to everyone, novice and expert alike. We hold the meetings every Sunday evening at UK time of 7 p.m. until 8 p.m. And details of how to come along to the meetings are in the link below. Talking of links, if you do enjoy this, do please click on that subscribe. At the very least, click on the like button to show that you've actually watched it, and feel free to make comments. But more importantly, come along and join us at a future meeting. Anyway, let's see who's going to come and join us today. Hey, man.
All right, hi, Gary. How are you?
Hey, good, thanks. You managed to get connected, okay? Yeah, what's your level of experience or knowledge or your interest at the moment?
So I have been involved in some crypto since 2017, just buying some Bitcoin, etc. That's when I first purchased it. Just been involved in some other projects such as Helium, just setting up some hotspots, a small fleet running. But I think over time I've realized that there's a big future for cryptocurrency. So I would just like to expand my knowledge in it because I feel like my knowledge is very limited, but I want to know as much as I can so that maybe there's certain coins that I don't know about now, but if I understand the tech behind it, then I'll probably think that's why I should have that coin or that's why I should have this. Whereas a lot of people invest in stuff, but we don't really know why we're investing in it. It's just because that person on Instagram or YouTube has said, yeah, hold that, but we don't understand why. So I want to understand everything and understand why it's worth buying these things. So yeah, so I'm trying to attend as many calls, read as much stuff, and yeah, just expand my horizon.
Well, brilliant, because there's so much to learn in this space, and I've been interested in certainly in blockchain and crypto since about 2014, 2015, and I actually moved into it fully in 2016. And the more I learn, the less I know, kind of thing. It's one of those weird things that the deeper you dig, the more you realize just how little you know. Hey, Laurent, you joined us.
Hi, Gary.
Hey, and we've got sound with you this time as well. Great.
You do, indeed, yeah.
And we haven't got Lawrence with us yet, so there won't be any confusion either.
Exactly. He'll probably join later on.
Hey, no problem. No problem. We're just sharing our kind of backgrounds. I was just asking, is it Aman or is that just a code for your name?
No, that is my name. It's Aman. Yeah, that's correct.
It's right. It's just I get loads of people who come on and you can never quite be sure as to whether they're using a proper name or they're actually trying to Zoom bomb or something at first. So there's no problem. Sorry, Laurent, just saying with Aman about level of interest and experience, and also is there anything you want to get out of this session, really?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd like to talk more about is about the tornado crash and how is that benefiting certain countries that are actually blacklisted. So I just want to understand exactly how that works and how people actually know that it's benefiting these countries. So that's one area which I've been looking into and I've not been able to find any answers.
Okay, I'll offer a starting point, and Ammon might have some knowledge as well. So ultimately, Tornado Cash is a mixer. Sure. So it's a way of obfuscating where crypto has come from and where it's gone to. And so in terms of it helping things, it typically helps anyone who doesn't want it to be known where they've got their crypto from or where it's gone to.
Sure. That I get, and I really get that, but I guess you're just doing a quick recap on what it means and what it is. Yeah.
Exactly, because I find it useful. Sometimes I get people who watch this recording afterwards, and so I try and keep in mind of making sure that we're all up to speed on. So it's in terms of what it does, as we say, it obfuscates it. So the advantage of that is obviously you want to keep your transactions, your trading to yourself, then you can. The drawback from that, from a country perspective, is that we've got things like anti-money laundering directive, counter-terrorism fraud requirements, sanctions checking. There's loads and loads of stuff that needs to be complied with around the world to do with financial transfers. And this is where you get that gray area of is crypto finance or not. So for some countries, if they are on a sanctions list, so they obviously want to be North Korea, then potentially they could try and use something like Tornado Cash to hide that they're receiving it or they're sending it or whatever. And I have to be particularly sensitive when I'm talking about that kind of stuff right now, given that there's the current court action ongoing against a British Ethereum, I think he was a developer, Chris, somebody's surname escapes me right now, who I think is in Qatar at the moment on some sort of house arrest until the FBI extradite him, because he gave a talk about how you can use crypto to avoid, amongst other things, he mentioned about avoiding sanctions. And he gave that talk in Pyongyang in North Korea, and he was photographed doing it. And so the FBI have said, well, you're now on the FBI most wanted list. So I have to be careful about when we're talking about these kind of things, because an orange jumpsuit does not suit me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I fully understand that, and I understand the rationale behind maybe not saying too much. But really, what I'd like to understand is, I mean, there's many wallets, there's many mixers around that people use, traders, all kinds. But what I'd really like to understand is, how do we know that once mixed, it goes to, let's say, North Korea?
You don't. Ultimately,
so how about, why is the press so illicitly, saying, well, this is going to countries like North Korea? That's what I really want to understand.
Yeah. So I'll caveat this, as I do with many of my presentations, that I'm not going to give financial, legal, or taxation advice, or in this case, how to do things around sanctions. However, I will say that Deloitte did a great report, I think it was about a year ago now, on money laundering and the different ways of doing it, and overcoming terrorism limits and this kind of thing. And ultimately, the most popular way of transacting money and breaking sanctions and that is by using used dollar bills in a suitcase, right? That is way the thing. But the press don't talk about that. And in fact, Bitcoin is, if I remember correctly, it was the 30th most popular way of doing money laundering, this kind of thing. So it's way down type thing. But the press are always being given this brief of government-controlled currency, good, crypto, deregulated, decentralized currency, bad. And so that they always go down this route. There was I was really interested, actually. There was a program on BBC Panorama in the UK last week, which is about cryptocurrency. And as always, I expected that to be it's all being used for money laundering, criminal activity. And surprisingly enough, they didn't go into it that much and actually talk about those things. The press are always like this. Press don't like to make stories about good things happening with crypto. It's always, if you look at it, I was at a media event a couple of years ago, and I called the media to account and said, look, crypto went from, as it was then, $20,000 up to $60,000, and then it recovered to, I think it was about $30,000. The press reported that as that people have lost loads and loads of money because crypto went to Bitcoin went to $60,000 and it's now only $30,000. So they've lost half their money. So, but they'd actually put in at 20 and sold out at 30. So they've made 50%. But you're claiming that they've lost 50. So a lot of the media are just anti-crypto.
Okay.
Does that explain why they do that?
No. I mean, that's another story, if we want to be honest. But what I'm trying to study, and obviously I've looked a lot into these mixers, what it doesn't actually say, and even when you dig deep, is where it's going. And to bluntly use, North Korea or any other countries, it's very difficult to accept, these kind of a statement, because we don't even know where it's going. And that's why I've been looking into it. So yes, I mean, the fact that, the press bash crypto every day, I've been living in it. So my background is I've been into crypto since 2013. I've been trading futures from that point onwards. So I'm a trader by education, but I engineer funds. So I've been listing crypto funds in Europe, one of a few that are out there, which are publicly listed, so on a regulated exchange, since 2015 and 16. So, but here, this is a bit more deeper. So really trying to understand, why is this Tornado Cash being blacklisted, and for the exact reason, because like you said, the press tends to bash and tends to use all kinds of stories, and some of which may be correct, but ultimately, I haven't been able to find where the mixing goes beyond.
Yeah. All I can suggest, you may have done this already, is that there's two organizations that do a lot of great stuff around the tracking and tracing crypto. One's a UK-based company called Elliptic.
Sure.
And Elliptic are fantastic in the stuff they do. And the other one is New York-based Chain Analysis. It's called, or Chain Analysis. Both of those do some really good stuff. And the smile on your face suggests you're already aware of them.
Yeah, so I've used both of them, and I know Tom very well from Elliptic. I've not been able to analyze the transfer beyond the mix, and that's been an issue for both companies. It's very hard. As much as there are traces of where it's going, it doesn't actually indicate which countries, and that's why I'm particularly keen. I mean, I'm sure there's relevance into going in some blacklisted countries, and I fully understand that, but I just feel a lot of it sometimes might be just gravy on top, and we don't really know the full story here.
I think you're certainly right on that. It's similar in a way to the fact that for many years, and certainly in the UK, the law enforcement agencies were always anti-crypto. And they'd always be saying, oh, no, crypto, it's dreadful, it's anonymous, criminals use it, we hate it, blah, 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 blah. I know with certainty they actually loved it because of the very fact it was traceable. It maintains a complete ledger of every transaction. What more could you possibly want? But, but
if looking for interesting stories, the other thing is, of course, with the FCA, where are we heading going forward? Because I think there's a lot of lip service.
Yep.
And we're still not getting to the bottom of it. I still feel that the fact that ETPs, ETNs, so exchange traded products, exchange traded notes in Europe, which have been the first listed in the markets way before the US, which is a first in this case, have now been denied in the UK, and yet in Europe they are thriving. And there's got to be something said here that this is beyond the FCA remit. This goes beyond, because there's no reason to block ETPs and ETNs in a market which is now quite expanding, both in Europe, continental Europe, and in the US. And I'm a strong lobbyist with regulators. I've done that many years in Europe, and I still can't get to the bottom why, beyond the FCA, this is a blockage.
Yeah, and it's weird as well that the FCA did their they did a market study on crypto assets and derivatives. So exactly, you say things like ETFs and that kind of thing, and they surveyed the public, they surveyed experts, they got research, and if I remember correctly, the paper they published said 96% of people said that they were willing to take the risks with crypto derivatives, and that they were happy, that they understood the risk, blah, blah, blah. 96% said they were okay with it, and the FCA still banned them for retail use. It's like that does not match up type thing. And ultimately, it came down to them saying, well, most retail investors are not intellectually savvy enough to be able to handle these things.
I mean, who are they to tell us that we are or not, right? I mean, how much mistakes has there been in the conventional markets that we know today in normal UK stocks?
Yeah.
You know,
well, you even take a look in a slightly different direction. You say, okay, let's assume that it's an absolute risk. It's a complete gamble. That's all it is. You allow people to gamble, don't you? Why can't they put 5% of their funds in this kind of thing? Yeah.
Well, that's a very good point that you raised there, Gary, because ultimately the betting world is something that is still not yet very well regulated. So, and that's the world out there that, you know, so many people are gambling, and to say that, you know, yes, crypto is speculative, but then to actually block it is quite shocking, really, because if it were, why are the European regulators allowing it in certain countries? And this is a problem we have in Europe, you know, whether or not we are in Europe. ESMA is supportive of these kind of structures, yet the UK regulators are saying no. And I find that completely illogical. There is no rational in which this should happen. And I still challenge them today, and I'm still not getting the right answers. And that's the reason why I'm saying this goes beyond. It doesn't go at the FCA level, it goes way beyond.
I think you're right. Amand, have you got any thoughts on this, or are you just listening in on it at the moment?
I think, to be fair, I'm just listening on. I think in regards to Tornado Cash, it obviously is something that has been in the headlines, but I guess I didn't really know it to the depths that you guys know about it. So it's definitely been interesting to just hear about it, understand it, and obviously just what's controversial about it, the fact that there's a lot of speculation, but media are painting in a bad way.
I think in the case of Tornado Cash, the reason it's receiving a lot of publicity is quite simply because the FBI has actually gone after a developer and has arrested him in Amsterdam, which is quite unusual that you've arrested a developer of some software, which the only time the FBI used to arrest software developers was when they were dealing in trade secrets around cryptography, because cryptography used to be treated as a military weapon, and it used to be. So it's bizarre that the FBI have gone to the extent of arresting a software developer for writing some code. And the very fact as well that I think all the exchanges kind of blacklisted Tornado Cash quite quickly seems interesting again. Usually exchanges aren't the fastest to respond and react to law enforcement type things, but I think they are getting a bit savvier now as they realize that they might end up in jail if they don't play ball so easily. So, but yeah, I think you're right, Laurent. You look at the effort that the UK is currently going to prevent access to things that the rest of Europe seems to be a little bit more relaxed with, particularly when you've got the likes of Matt Hancock and Rishi Sunak all talking about how crypto is the future of the UK and we can embrace it and encourage it.
Well, right? I mean, that's been another great one with copper.
So what was that with copper? Because they've just moved out of the country, haven't they?
No. So John, I think it's John Hammond, the ex Chancellor of the Exchequer. I think he's now the chairman at Copper, and he's been. If you look at some videos, he's been very supportive of crypto. And it's always ironic, right? And this is where the hypocrisy is. It's always ironic that you get, John Hancock now saying, "Oh, look, how wonderful crypto is." Why didn't you say this when you were in Parliament, right?
Well, in fairness to Matt Hancock, when he was the Minister of State for, what was it, DBEIS, so Department of Business, Education, Media, and something. It was to do with technology anyway. He was actually one of the few MPs who I was actually quite impressed by, that he actually understood what he was talking about. And he comes from a fintech background as well. And a few years ago, he was talking about crypto. And the person who did speak up about crypto in Parliament back in 2014, in fact, was High Wycombe's MP, Steve Baker, who was talking in 2014 about Bitcoin and crypto being the future. And he's always been a little bit ahead of himself in that respect.
Yeah, we had that video, actually. I was quite surprised. We had that video of cryptographic and payments that shown to us very recently on one of the channels.
Okay.
But ultimately, it's still the hypocrisy, right? I mean, it's no one's really gonna talk about it and get any support, and that's the problem we have in this country. On the one hand, we say, yeah, we want. We're fading behind. I mean, there's no question about it. We're fading behind in technology and disruption, and no one seems to be doing anything about it. I mean, this is the reason why you said copper is moving potentially to Switzerland, and like many other companies are, and this is the beginning.
Well, I saw it as well with after the FCA banned crypto derivatives for retail customers. They then went on and they took responsibility to be the supervisor of crypto for anti-money laundering purposes. And they established the crypto asset register, which is where any company that's dealing in crypto in the UK has to go on a crypto asset register. And they had, I think it was something like 200 applications originally. And they took ages, and then they extended the deadline, and they kept it going, And eventually a load of companies gave up and re-domiciled in Singapore, where the monetary authority of Singapore is much more crypto friendly. And I was taking a look at the lists the other day, and I think on the list of approved companies, I think there are 35 companies in total. There's one company that remains on a temporary register, which is very interesting because it's Revolut.
Absolutely.
And Revolut have got some interesting things. And they've got a list of companies who they now believe should be registered but aren't. So they've actually gone out and checked websites and said, we think what these people are doing means they should be registered, but they're not registered. And I can't remember how many is on that list, but it's a lot longer than the approved ones. So it's like, again, there's something not good on that.
Look, I totally believe that there are thousands of companies out there promoting investment with or without cryptos and should be regulated. I fully agree that these companies should be looked at. I mean, there's some dodgy websites with fake, register with Companies House and all of these companies. I mean, I've seen a lot and I've reported some anyway. But the ultimate thing is that there's some really sound companies that we know here in this chat and in our network and community that are trying to do good things with governance and compliance. And they're being dismissed, and that's the reason why they're leaving this country. And this is the beginning. Now, unfortunately, Gary, I have to go because I've just got another call, and I have to leave you guys. But look, I'm going to join you again next week, but I have to jump on this call. Thank you.
No problem, Lauren. Thanks for joining, and come back again. See you next week, then.
Will do. Bye.
So, man, it's over to you. Anything in particular you'd like to chat about today?
So I guess one question I have, so obviously we're getting closer to the Ethereum Merge. I guess that's happening mid-September.
Yep.
Obviously, one thing that's going to cause is obviously we're moving from proof of work to proof of stake. And there's going to be, I'm guessing, thousands or tens of thousands of people that have mining devices that are no longer going to be, or basically going to become redundant. What operations do you think those miners are going to turn to? Do you know if there's any particular coins that
there are websites. I don't do crypto mining. It's a bit niche for me, but I know that there are websites where you can actually go to where it recommends which altcoins you can mine. And I think there are even websites that have got like an API, so like an interface where it allows you to almost hot swap your crypto mining rig to mine whatever is the most profitable to mine on any particular day. So I think some of them are just going to switch from Ethereum, and maybe they'll go on to Cardano or Solana or something. But I'm not into the mining space to be able to offer any suggestions of everyone's switching to Dash or Bitcoin Cash or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No, that's cool. Yeah, I was just curious because I just thought there's going to be a lot of redundant miners. So just wondering, because I'm noticing based on the Ethereum thing, it's causing an impact on other coins. So for example, infrastructure or blockchains which are similar to Ethereum, we're getting a boost now because they're continuing the proof of work structure. So I think there's one called Flux, and they've seen a huge boost in their price because we're continuing that old style, which people say is more secure. And yeah, just seeing stuff like that.
Yeah, the other one as well is that there is talk at the moment of, whilst the main, what you'd almost describe as Ethereum Classic, or the main Ethereum, but describing it as Ethereum Classic is not quite right. That actually, in addition to there being a merge of the code base for it to do proof of stake, there might be some exchanges and miners who want to stay with the original Ethereum, and so we'll create a hard fork, and so you'll have two Ethereum networks. One being,
but I think that's what was confusing me. So, so I take it. So there already is an Ethereum Classic, isn't there, which is currently trading, and then there's going to be another hard fork. So would that mean there's 3 different Ethereum? So you've got this new merge, Ethereum 2.0, then you've got the Ethereum Classic, and then you're going to have a hard fork Ethereum, which will be called something else.
So this is the thing, and I need to get this the right way around. That when you change the code base, and it is non-backward compatible, but everyone everyone on the network agrees to the change, then you're doing a soft fork. Oh, soft fork? Well, it's you're staying with the same code base and everyone's saying the same thing. A hard fork takes place when you actually do split it off in some way. So in fact, it'd be, you do have the thing that some people, like you say, you've got ETH, so you've got ETH, and you've got Ethereum Classic, which is ETC. That was a hard fork that was done when, I don't know if you remember the DAO project.
Yeah, heard about that, yeah.
When the DAO, which was an original decentralized autonomous organization that went wrong, and it was hacked, and about $50 million worth of ETH was hacked out of it. And that was the one time that the Ethereum community, or part of it, got together and did a fork to effectively undo what had been done. Some people in the community objected to that, and so they kept the original Ethereum, which is called Ethereum Classic. So we could see a similar thing happen again. And in fact, someone pinged me a note before to say, are you going to be talking about this on today's session? And I said, well, we will if you join me, type thing. Because I'm not that close to them.
Yeah. So I've got one question for you about that. So obviously you described it as the DAO was hacked. Is that your opinion? From your perspective, would you say that it was hacked, or would you say that the codes that they implemented obviously had a flaw in it, which allowed that to happen without any kind of, I don't know, it was just an easy thing that the guy figured out to be able to get that money, which was a part of the code. And people say code is the law of
you're absolutely right. I should actually, I normally pull other people up for calling it a hack when actually it wasn't. You're absolutely right. It was that somebody exploited the way the code had been written to take advantage of the way it was checking stuff, as opposed to a traditional hack, which is where someone breaks into a system and does things. So you're right. It was actually an exploit of the code. It's just, we keep changing the meaning of words these days. And these days, hacking doesn't seem to mean what it used to mean to me years ago, of hacking down phone lines and that. So it is called a DAO hack, even though it was just that they intellectually hacked it. They didn't actually manipulate anything. But you are quite right with that. Yeah. And for those, if there's anyone who's watching the recording who might not know what kind of happened, from my recollection, it was quite a clever thing, really, that it's a bit like going up to a bank ATM, so, you know, a hole in the wall machine, putting your card in and asking for £200 in cash, and it checks to make sure you've got £200, and it gives you £200, and then it says, do you want to do anything else? And you click on yes, I'll have £200, please. and it didn't recheck your account balance. So it
Yeah.
gave you another £200, and then it said, would you want to do anything else? Yes, I'd like another £200. And they effectively drained it like that. And so I believe that the code exploit was the fact it wasn't rechecking the status, the balance. So that was quite a clever thing.
Yeah, I think what was happening, I think the time in which it checked the transaction, there was actually a delay or something like that. So they just kept doing the same request again and again and again and again before it had time to check it. And I think by the end, it just ended up transferring all that ETH to them.
Yeah, so it was something that I found, actually, I still consider a lot of crypto to be experimental. And I think that the DAO was one of the best experiments to prove that code is not law, because all the purists were saying, oh, code is law, whatever the code says goes. And then they changed their minds when they realized that the code was faulty. And it's like, well, it's either something that you're going to operate to or something that you're not. So I thought it was quite useful from a kind of a quasi-cultural perspective that it proved that code is not law. And the other thing it proved as well is that, if I remember correctly, the people within the Ethereum network who decided to do the rollback and the code change and that, it was not necessarily a majority who voted on it. It was simply enough influential people. So again, it disproved the concept of decentralization of governance, because it showed that there was still a small group of people who exerted an undue influence. So I found it fascinating in a way that I often describe crypto and the way it develops a little bit like aviation, and how it is in the days of the Wright brothers in 1903. You've got this little one-seater airplane, it does a little hop, which is like Bitcoin 1.0. And then someone comes along and says, what happens if we stick another wing on, or a tail or whatever, and it takes off and it crashes, and there's blood and guts and lawyers and law enforcement people, and that leads to process improvements and governance and that. And then the next airplane takes off and does a bit better, and then the next one, they say, oh, we should have 3 jet engines on it, wherever, and it crashes. Crypto is kind of very similar in a way, that you almost need these plane crashes every so often, which then means that the government comes in and regulation comes in and lawyers come in, and it gradually evolves and matures the market. And so in some ways, I describe the DAO as one of the first big plane crashes that didn't happen, because if they'd have actually have lost the $50 million, I think we would have seen a different attitude to the way people check code and test code and that. And I don't think it matured as quickly as it needed to. That's just my viewpoint, and I'm not a coder on it. I'll probably get some of the evangelists from the Ethereum community giving me a load of grief over that. But that's my kind of stance on it. That I think ultimately we are still in an experimental phase. Because the thing I find interesting at the moment about the merge is that if it's done as a pure merge, so you get your code base, you bring it together, you stay on the same network, you stay with the same ledger entries and everything like that, that's great. But if you do it as a hard fork where you've got a different code set running, what happens to all the smart contracts that's still running on the old Ethereum network? Which and those smart contracts, like ERC20 is the smart contract standard for ICO tokens. What happens to them if there's a fork? Because in the past, as you say, we've had Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, and we've had Bitcoin. We've got Bitcoin Cash through Roger Ver. We've got Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, which is the Craig Wright version. There's loads of other versions of Bitcoin as well. Whenever you do a fork, financially, that doesn't suddenly mean that you doubled your wealth, because the forked coin is generally worth a percentage of the original coin's value in there. So what's going to happen if they do end up with 2 Ethereum coins anybody knows. But more interestingly is what happens to the smart contracts, because you could end up with the same smart contract executing on both platforms. Now, if you've got external systems talking to those smart contracts, what happens there? That's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, no, that definitely is very interesting. I didn't really think of it as that. I think when I understood about this whole DAO situation and how they did the hard fork, the way we described it is they created a hard fork so that it was like the DAO thing never happened, but everything previously was still on their history or on the ledger, recorded ledger. So yeah, definitely from what you're saying, if we were to hard fork it, that is quite an interesting point. What happens to the contracts? Do they extend them to the new blockchain, or what happens? So yeah, no, that's definitely is very interesting. I guess I have no idea how that works because I'm not too technical, but
okay,
yeah,
and it's something I've been away from for a while. But if you think about how it is, you know, Binance lists thousands of crypto pairs these days, and a lot of them are actually not cryptocurrencies, but they're crypto tokens. And tokens are, you know, smart contracts based on other blockchains such as Ethereum.
Yeah.
So if you end up with two Ethereums running, you know, the Ethereum proof of work and Ethereum proof of stake, or I think some people are describing it ETH-W and ETH-S. Then are the exchanges, are they going to go that they'll only support the Ethereum S-based contracts and that kind of thing? I really don't know. It's going to be an interesting month to see people scrabbling on that one.
Yeah, because no, it is interesting. It's probably, from our perspective, we're just thinking, oh, it's just another hard fork of this is happening. But from the back end, from the exchanges, I guess the integration process, it is a nightmare. There's a lot of codes involved in trying to do all that.
Yeah, and it's something as well. I think in the days when blockchain platforms were primarily supporting a cryptocurrency, so you know, the likes of Bitcoin or Ethereum in the early days, it's relatively simple to, you know, port it onto a new platform, update your code base, and everything's good because it's just values on a database. But once you get to the point where it's now executable code on a database for each different crypto token, and you think about how many NFTs are out there at the moment. So I don't know if people are thinking a lot about this, but you know, NFTs have grown massively. Some of them are on the Ethereum platform, some are on Cardano and won't be affected, some are on Solana and some of the others. But for the NFTs that everyone's getting really hyped over, which are running on Ethereum, what happens when you fork Ethereum?
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. That is very interesting. I think I'm probably going to go down a rabbit hole trying to understand all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's going to be fascinating because in theory, you could have two blockchains, you know, your Ethereum S and your Ethereum W, both pointing to an IPFS file, which is like an image, a video, whatever, which is the end digital asset. But you've now got an NFT sitting on the Ethereum S platform and an NFT sitting on the Ethereum W platform, both pointing at the same end asset. Which one legally has the legal ownership of the end asset?
Yeah,
because I don't know on that. I can see a LinkedIn post being written in my head at the moment about this. Has anyone thought about that?
Yeah, no, it does sound like it's going to be very complicated. Yeah, just wondering, because obviously all that value is aligned to whoever's got that key for the NFT. So if there's two of it, then how does that value work? Is the other one still valued as high because it's on the fork chain, or do people just think that's Good,
because my guess is that the wallet address that the NFT smart contract operates through is going to be the same wallet address, but just on 2 blockchains.
Yeah.
And then the NFT itself, which a lot of people think of NFTs as being the end asset, when actually it's not. An NFT is simply an entry in an array managed by a smart contract on the blockchain. So if you've now got 2 separate smart contracts, both of which have got their array of which wallet owns which token, but they, within the token, it points to where the end asset is, they'll both be pointing at the same end asset.
Yeah.
I think, which is, I'm going to have to go and start asking some people to explain this to me.
Yeah. Because I assume Ethereum is the first kind of smart contract blockchain, which is potentially going to have a hard fork, whereas obviously you mentioned Bitcoin Cash and stuff like that. That's a lot more simple. You don't have your smart contracts in those blockchains. So yeah,
exactly.
My memory was,
yeah. So up till now, it mainly has been cryptocurrency oriented blockchains that are forked in some way, not programmable ones. And I'm sure there will have been, but it's like we say, Ethereum Classic and Ethereum, that there have been forks of Ethereum before now. But the way in which the platform is now being adopted, I mean, that happened in, I think it was 2017, thereabouts. So in the past 5 years, the way it's been used, so ERC 721 smart contracts, which is what NFTs are based on, have evolved, and ERC 1155s and all this kind of stuff. So it's interesting that I'm not aware of any blockchains that support tokens in that way that have been forked. They've usually been upgraded, is my understanding. So they've gone. It's like Cardano, where they've made improvements that I believe that's typically been an upgrade, and a kind of an on-chain upgrade. It's not been a forking. So interesting times.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's obviously you've got people that are against this merge. There's a lot of people saying that it's going to improve it, but yeah, there's obviously going to be a lot of problems, as you highlighted, of how we're going to deal with the existing contracts and to the new hard fork. But I guess there are some exchanges that have mentioned that they're not going to support a hard fork of Ethereum. Okay. So I guess if you were to have 2 NFTs but on different chains, then I guess there's going to be less value towards the other one, which has been hard forked, since you're not really going to be able to easily sell it to other people if there are a lot of.
Well, it's kind of interesting that whichever one takes precedence, then the other one should be worth 0. Because the whole thing that people don't get about NFTs is that ultimately NFTs are simply a way of buying bragging rights. That's all they are. They're a way of saying that you own something. It doesn't grant or prevent access to the end digital asset. Now, if the only purpose of it is to say that you are the owner of something, then you need a legal determination as to which of the blockchains is the designated owner, because you can't have 2 owners of the same asset, and whichever one is deemed as no longer being the owner of the asset, the value of that as an NFT pretty much goes to 0, unless you want to have the bragging right of having an NFT that isn't really worth anything. It's like, hey, I'm the first one to have this. I'm the first one to have this NFT that is a worthless NFT type thing.
So I assume once you do a hard fork, the person that owns that NFT on the new hard fork will also be given the rights to the ownership of that one. I assume that's how it works. So they would automatically own that new hard forked NFT, which they have.
So on
the current one.
I believe that's the case on a code basis. So the way the software works and the way the smart contracts work. What I'm unsure about is that what is the legal determination of ownership? That if you've now got 2 separate databases, and one's sticking with the original proof of work, and one's been migrated by the community to use proof of stake, then which one legally represents the true ownership of the end asset. I
Yeah.
really don't know. I don't think that's been explored before.
Yeah.
I might have to reach out to my legal community and start seeking a few opinions on that.
Because I guess because that is one other thing, is because when people talk about NFTs, they talk about it being unique. There's only one person that owns it, but you're bringing up that point. Now there's going to be two. So yeah,
Yep.
it's opened my eyes.
Yeah, and again, it might be that you've now got NFTW and NFTS. So you've now got the same NFT, but across the two blockchains. But there is a point at which that then allows you to sell one of them, and the only one that's going to be worth anything is the one that holds effectively the legal title, and both of them can't own that. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating, this one. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about NFTs on that respect. So
yeah.
Well, if there's anyone watching this afterwards on the recording who've got any thoughts, then as the YouTubers say, make a comment in the comments below.
So I guess another interesting point, just to follow on from what we're discussing. Obviously, we were talking quite a lot about NFTs. As you said, there's a lot of hype about it. What is your views of NFTs overall? Do you think there actually is some kind of useful application for them, or do you think it is just a bunch of hype where people are trying to make money and then it's just going to disappear? What are your opinions on NFTs?
It's almost a merger of both. I think there is a lot of hype, and I think there's a lot of people making a lot of money out of them, and I think they will disappear, and then I think they'll re-emerge in a slightly different guise. I've been watching cryptocurrency activity and evolution since like mid 2010s, and what I see is you get almost like an annual wave of something new coming along. So originally it was cryptocurrency. 2016, 2017, you started going into the ICO craze of ICOs exploded, plateaued, and disappeared away. Then you had the whole DeFi space that massively grew for a while. And again, that's kind of settled down a little bit. Then you've got NFTs. But within the NFT evolution, it's almost waves within waves. So I saw the rapid growth of NFTs, things like CryptoPunks, and then Bored Ape Yacht Club, and the whole digital image type thing. That was a whole load of hype that grew and then dropped away. Then you had things like collectibles, so where you started getting things like football clubs getting into the whole NFT space. Then you've got the whole thing of loyalty type things. So this is where the big brands, the Nikes, the Adidas, started getting into the space. So I've seen multiple waves coming along of all this kind of stuff. And I think we're going to see more of that. But I think over time, what's going to happen, it's going to help the entire NFT capability to mature. Again, using the transport analogy, in some ways, distributed ledger and blockchain is like a railroad, and it's almost like the ledger is the railroad, the blockchain is the train. The smart contracts, are the tickets, and the tokens are what you can buy in the shop with the tickets or whatever. But I think we're gonna see NFTs maturing, and they're going to start being used for new and interesting things. So as ownership of physical assets, for example. So I was doing a piece of work about a year ago about associating NFTs with physical works of art, and I kind of think, in a way, NFTs are going to end up being used for the provenance of physical goods in the way that everyone claimed that blockchains are going to be used for in the first place. So the whole thing of things like fine wine or vehicle ownership, property, or that kind of thing, I think we're going to see NFTs being adopted for that kind of thing.
I guess one point I have with this, so it's just something I read on Reddit once, and I do kind of see where that person was coming from. Obviously, with an NFT, you need to make sure you got the key, you don't lose it. But what happens in the situation you lose your NFT, which is your hosted, or ownership of a car, what happens in that situation? Whereas in real life, you can request new documents, or you can go through some kind of process where you'll be in the system and you'll be able to prove from the system that you have got the ownership of it. So in an NFT, you lose it, but what happens there?
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things. When I was doing some research on NFTs, there's actually, I identified 7 failure points where something could go wrong that resulted in you not being able to access the end asset in some way or prove ownership. Now, exactly as you say, you know, if that's a crypto monkey or a crypto ape or whatever, then okay, your world isn't going to end. But if it's the title deed of your house, that's a different story. And this is where, again, I think a lot of blockchain-based things are still not quite yet at the level of maturity that they need to be for us to adopt in a wider way. And so I can see NFTs beginning to be used for certain things, but the NFT infrastructure, architecture, platforms, whatever, just are not robust enough yet. You know, and I'm doing some work with a cryptography-based company in the States around providing a crypto custody capability. That means that you can secure your private keys in the public, funnily enough. So you can. So it's a really interesting new way of dealing with things and doing the similar to multi-signature. It's a form of multi-signature, which means you can have multiple parties involved in signing off a transaction. And you can create the keys in a slightly different way, or rather recover them if needed in a different way. Because you're right, if you lose the keys, you've lost everything, unless for most blockchains you kept the copy of the seed phrase, and if you've got the seed phrase, you can recover the private keys and you're all good to go again. Which is what I find funny when I've spoken to some companies who, when they talk about crypto custody, what they do is they put the keys onto a nano ledger or a Trezor, and they go and stick that in a safe, which is in a vault, which is in Zurich with, you know, security guards around it. I said, you do realize that this piece of paper here, which has got seed phrase on it, means that I could go and take all the crypto that you think is sitting on that device, because it's not actually sitting on that device, and they kind of go a bit pale. So NFTs are even worse, you know. But as you say, if you lose the keys, that you've lost everything. So this is where, as an industry, we need to develop more robust, more reliable ways of storing and recovering and managing keys, and that's why I'm involved in that particular company.
That's very interesting. No, that does make sense. We're still in the infancy period where we're developing all these products, and I guess obviously the blockchain, it's something that we can build on from to further develop it, so that there actually will be practical uses that we can get out of it. So NFTs, this is like the first iteration of it, and then we'll see it maybe in 5-10 years time where they actually will be a lot more not secure, but obviously you'll have other ways. If there was some kind of loss, you'll be able to recover it. And that makes complete sense.
I'm gonna have to try and extend my aviation analogy in some way, because I think in some ways NFTs are almost like the early helicopters, and it was taking things in a different direction and doing vertical landings and that, and there were even more crashes then. So but this is it, and this is why it worries me at times that people who can't afford to lose the value that they've put into these things do not realize just how risky some of them are. You know, and admittedly, the thing I've learned about crypto is it encouraged me to learn about how traditional financial systems work, and that now horrifies me even more. You know, that now I actually understand how a bank account works, and most people do not realize that. So I'm now kind of even more nervous, and it was only through where people say, oh yeah, crypto, I don't really understand it, And you go, okay,
Yeah.
well, do you understand how traditional finance works? And
very true.
and I had it the other week. I was at an event. I said to people in the room, how many of you have got your money in a bank account? And everyone's hands go up and down. So you realize none of you have. And they'll go, oh yeah, I have, definitely. I deposited it. No, once you put money into a bank account, it's no longer your money. You've given the bank a loan and it's their money. And that's why you've got things like financial services compensation scheme, because if it goes wrong, you're an unsecured creditor. And it's funny, the other week, a load of people go, oh, no, that's not true. One of the other guys who was on the panel runs his own private bank, and he leaned forwards and he put his hand up and he said, actually, Gary's right. And this is it. You suddenly discover that your lifetime of understanding of traditional finance was completely wrong. And this is where, when you look at it with crypto, this is why when people say, oh, I don't want to get into crypto because I don't understand it. And people say, oh, you have to learn about it, blah, blah, blah. There's some value in that. But I think in some ways, we tend to use things, I sometimes drive a car. I would struggle to describe the workings of an internal combustion engine. But I know if I press that pedal, I go faster. And if I press that pedal, I go slower type thing. And it's the same in some ways with crypto. Do you really need to know it to the level of understanding it? Now, if you're into racing cars, absolutely, you need to know all of it kind of thing. So, interesting.
I guess the only thing I can probably say is maybe when they say that they don't understand it, it could be that they don't understand the purpose of it as well. So obviously, rather than just understanding how it works, but what actually is it used for? Why do we need Bitcoin? Why do we need Ethereum? So I guess maybe that's it. One thing you could say for them. Your point's very good. I do find your point about the financial markets very interesting. The banking system, I'll definitely keep that in mind.
And the only difference between the two, I think, that is in crypto, people know that they don't understand it. Whereas in the traditional finance world, people don't realize that they don't understand it. And that's the only difference. So anyway, I'm going to have to finish off. It's 8 o'clock. The time has flown. I hope that was interesting and worthwhile coming along. And for anyone who's watching it afterwards, hope it was interesting and enjoyable as well. Aman, thank you for joining me today. It ended up as a one-to-one, which sometimes is like a fireside chat, are actually far more interesting. So I hope you enjoyed it anyway.
Yep, thank you so much for that. It's very insightful, obviously, about the Tornado Cash to get a greater understanding of that, and obviously the other stuff that we discussed. So I'll definitely be here next Sunday. I found it very insightful, everything. So thank you for that, Gary.
Come again and bring questions, bring your friends, and for anyone who's watching.
Definitely.
Yeah, if you're into YouTube, subscribe, click, join, whatever. But hopefully see you again next week anyway.